My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my spoiler-filled review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And before I start talking about the specific events in the movie, I do quickly want to discuss just how shocked I am by the box office of this movie. If you asked me at the beginning of this year what would be the top 3 highest grossing movies of the year, I would say Mario, I would say this movie, and I'd probably say Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But then tickets for this movie went on sale weeks ago. That's when I got mine, and I was shocked at just how empty almost every viewing was. And looking at the tickets for tonight's shows, even. Like, I thought the momentum of Top Gun Maverick would carry over into this movie. I thought the hype from the last movie would carry over. I thought the great reviews would carry into seats and butts and seats. And I'm just kind of shocked. Like, I just looked at a bunch of screenings and I can't find a single one in my area that's even close to being full. Like, that's just catches me completely off guard. Like, this might be another box office disaster on the same level as Indiana Jones. I guess we'll see. I hope not. It's certainly a better movie, but still. But anyways, the ending. Let's talk about it. Because this is the third part 1 of this year. We got Fast X, we got Spider-Verse, and now we got this movie. And I feel like Spider-Verse is the only one to get this ending correct. Because it's a part 1. Lean into that. Set up the sequel so I cannot wait to see what happens next. And Spider-Verse did that. The way that movie ends, it has emotion, it has shock, and it just gets you hyped up. I have like nothing but pure adrenaline by the end of that movie. And in this movie, it kind of just ends. There's no satisfying payoff to anything really, and it doesn't set enough up for the sequel. It just kind of ends in the middle of the story, kind of like Dune. And I don't know, I just prefer it when they embrace the cliffhanger approach, or at least in Infinity War, where like the movie could actually end there and I'd be okay. But I don't know, this ending, like, Ethan has the keys, the villain doesn't. So, like, it's not like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next. Like, usually at the end of a part 1, the hero is at rock bottom and they have to fight the way back to the top for the next movie. And I just thought this part 1 ending was very unsatisfying. And while I'm talking spoilers, let's also talk about the handling of Elsa Faust, because it pissed me off. I was furious at the beginning of this movie when it seems like they killed her off. And I'm like, oh wow, they just did her dirty. But then it turns out to be a fake out 5 minutes later. And I'm like, okay. And then she's like not in the movie at all. And then Ethan has to make a choice between Elsa and Grace, and he refuses to choose. And then she just gets killed off. And I know there's a theory going around right now that she's not actually dead. There's a much bigger plan on display, and maybe that's the case, and maybe they pour it off. But based off this movie and this movie alone, talk about wasted potential. Like, this character is fantastic. She's a badass. She's the opposite side of the same coin as Ethan Hunt. And the fact that she can stand her own up against him and all that, like, I think she's such a great actor, and she just went out with a whimper, and it just didn't sit right with me. And then you add in the fact that Grace is her obvious replacement throughout this entire movie, it pisses me off even more. It feels like they killed Elsa off so the next one can enter the picture. But my issue with Grace is that she just feels like another Elsa, someone who Ethan initially underestimates and then proves herself throughout. And even the thief aspect of her character is very similar to Thandie Newton's character in Mission Impossible 2, and it just, there's nothing about her character that felt fresh or new, so I don't understand why you got rid of Elsa and got Grace. It just didn't work for me at all. I also thought the fact that Ethan didn't mention his wife in the grand scheme of things was off when he talks about all these women who he's cared for. So the entire aspect of how he can't let anyone else die doesn't really work for me. There's a scene in Fallout where Ethan catches up to Henry Cavill and he threatens his wife. And just like that, you feel that this man is going to be driven to his breaking point, and it had emotion, and this movie just didn't have that. They keep referring to events in his past, and none of that worked for me. It felt like a very generic backstory for the villain, and that's all. And everything with the entity I thought was complete nonsense. Having Gabriel working for him was just something that never really worked for him. It's like, Gabriel's not really the villain, but he is. Just, I'd rather have it be one and the same. As someone actually commented that Eagle Eye did this movie better, and that comment is 1,000 times correct. Like, absolutely. That is a very underrated thriller, and I feel like the AI was just kind of very messy. The way it's explained, the way it's used, I didn't really care for it. And then we got Mantis's character, Pom Klementieff from Paris. And there was that one fight scene where it's so close up and you can't tell what's going on. And she just ends up adding nothing to the plot along with the two agent characters as well. So, I don't know. I thought the movie had too many characters, too much going on. So much of it was exposition. That scene at the club was boring as hell. I hated the handling of Elsa. I thought Grace was an unnecessary inclusion. But let's talk about some stuff I do like. And I thought the opening scene on the submarine was really great. It reminded me of like an older thriller. That worked for me. I love the stuff in the desert besides the way that scene ends, and I wish it was longer. Ethan having the Kittredge mask early on was pretty funny, and I thought the airport scene was great. Just, Benji's trying to, what's the word? Make it so a bomb doesn't go off, while Ethan's focusing on all this other stuff, and Luso's jumping back and forth. That one scene when he asks Ethan, "Hey, just a question, Ethan. What's always on its way but never arrives?" That scene got a good laugh from me. That entire moment kind of reminded me of the Riddler in Batman, which I liked. I do love that scene when they're looking for Ethan and he's running on the rooftop. But the way that scene ends right there, I thought was really off. Like, we're not going to show him get down from the roof. Okay, whatever. The worm scene I thought was kind of unnecessary, to be honest. I think you could have chopped it, and it does make for some nice, funny moments. That car chase really shows off Tom Cruise's comedic chops. He kind of reminds me of Buster Keaton in that moment. Just the physical comedy and him being handcuffed and trying to steal, and I thought it was really great, but it does go on for too long. I like the scene when he's got his hand handcuffed to the wheel and he's trying to look normal, but he realizes he can't. That's great. I thought Ethan being led to the wrong location by the entity was a really great moment. I wish they did more stuff with that, with the AI. Some of the humor in this movie did make me laugh, but some of it felt very forced. And I do love the scene when he drives off the cliff. But, I don't know, leading up to that point, the punchline of the joke was so obvious, and maybe it's because it's been heavily marketed and I've already seen the scene, but it's still amazing in context. Just the way it goes silent, you could hear people holding their breaths. It was a really great moment, and I do like the fight scene on top of the train. I do wish they maybe did a bit more, like have a chase scene throughout all the different cars and all that. The best train action scene is still the Lone Ranger, and it's not even close. But when the bridge blows up and each car is hitting off the edge and they have to get to the next one and they go through a kitchen and a dining room and the piano, that was really great. And that was when Grace felt like her own character the most, and it just really worked for me. It reminded me of Uncharted 2 in the best possible way, and I like Grace's arc by the end of this movie. How her declining the money is her accepting Ethan's mission, and yeah, so like, I still like the movie enough. I don't hate it. I just thought it could have been much better. If they give Elsa the spotlight that Grace had, if they got rid of so much of the exposition and they kept it simple and they made the desert scene a bit longer, if they showed Ethan getting off the roof and they changed the villain entirely and they shortened the Rome scene and they added a big action stunt between Rome and the train stuff, because this movie needed more action. It's why I come to this franchise. If you got rid of Mantis and the cops and Grace and you tighten it up, I feel like it could be great, but that's a lot of notes. I do like this movie enough, and that train scene is really fantastic when it's just hanging off the bridge. I loved it. I just wanted more of that excitement, that kind of thrill, it was same as him driving off the cliff. Mission Impossible Fallout kept topping itself throughout the entire movie, and here, it just feels like a giant step down. So, look, I like it, it's fine, but it's not great. But what are your thoughts on the movie, spoiler filled, and what are your thoughts on the box office so far? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more videos soon. Gavin, out.